Once I was a soldier, and I fought on foreign sands for you. Once I was a hunter, and I brought home fresh meat for you. Once I was a lover.
Photographs of Vietnam created an indelible impression on people. They called it a TV war, but quite frankly, the images people remember are still photographs.
To tell you I was just alive, and sometimes I wonder, just for a while, will you ever?
I think to be a war photographer is the most perverted thing you can be. I think pornography is a safer ground to be on than to be a war photographer. And the idea of being labeled as a war photographer really upsets me.
All of our rubbish dreams, I find myself searching.
The responsibility of the photographer, especially the combat photographer, is to capture the toll that war causes on humanity. Not upon the Gook, not upon the Kraut, not upon the Jap, but upon other people. Then, and only then, can a citizen of the world make a judgment as to whether or not the price is worth paying.
Just for a while, will you ever remember me? Ever remember me?
The train of events that led up to the death of Thich Quang Duc, this monk who burned himself, had begun some weeks earlier than the actual suicide. And what was happening was that the Buddhist majority of the country was working to end the dominance of a Catholic government. One day I turned up at this little pagoda where the protest march had been organized. Two young monks came over quite rapidly with a jerry can of gasoline and poured it over the old monk and stepped back. And then he had a packet of matches in his lap. He struck one of them, and instantly he was enveloped in flame. I just kept shooting and shooting and shooting, and that protected me from the horror of the thing, the smell of the burning flesh, the expression of anguish. He never cried out, but his face did become anguished, and eventually, of course, he flopped over and twitched a few times, and that was it.
Well, the impact was sensational in the United States. I think it was the first time ever that something like this had been photographed. Between 1962 and 1965, the interest of American newspapers and I said papers around the world was only occasional, sporadic. The war was between Vietnamese and Vietnamese. Our job in the beginning was to put that war on the map and we tried to bring it to the attention of the outside world.
Henry Cabot Lodge was a prominent senator at the time, said he saw the photograph on the desk of President Kennedy in the Oval Office. And Kennedy seemed to believe that that was a photograph that helped him decide to beef up the war effort.
I was there for the arrival of the very first U.S. Marines when they came ashore in Da Nang. They took us out to this beach before dawn, And standing on the beach with us was a couple of TV crews. There was the head of the Da Nang Chamber of Commerce, and he had with him about 20 beautiful ladies dressed in these flowing awsais, and they're all holding wreaths. You know, I wonder what would happen if we have one of them lay around the neck of the first Marine to come off the landing craft. So sure enough, here come about 8 landing craft up to the beach, and the minute the ramps go down, the Marines come charging out. Not only did this one lady walk out, but the others see her going out, and now there are 20 girls. The landing craft are banging into each other. Marines are grabbing girls, dropping their weapons. It's absolute pandemonium. And we turned around, and here's this Marine general, and there are tears coming out of his eyes. And he said, "You've ruined it. You've ruined the whole landing." And you know something? That war never went right from that point on.
I think what we're inclined to forget is that at first, the Americans in general, especially the military, felt that they were there to do good, and they were doing good, and they wanted the world to see that they were doing good. It was called winning the hearts and minds of the Vietnamese. Personal hygiene was always a matter of great concern to Americans. Every American seemed quite convinced that people were somehow unhygienic. On the other hand, the Vietnamese, who found it necessary to bathe 3 times a day, could never understand why Americans restricted themselves to only 1 daily washing. This Marine was demonstrating to bored mothers how to bathe a child. One mother realized the Marine was using her vegetable dish to stand the boy in, and to the embarrassment of the other Marines, grabbed the dish and strode off, cursing such disregard for the basics of cleanliness.
The U.S. would, in order to try and promote civil development, would get these training programs, and you would sometimes see a big American sergeant coming in, a big beefy guy that weighed 250 pounds, and these 3 Vietnamese guys, each of which who weighed about maybe 105 pounds. And he'd be trying to teach these little tigers just exactly, you know, the right way to do this. We're going to teach them a trade and teach them how to do this and that. And of course, as soon as the press would like turn around and walk away from the event, everybody would go back to kind of doing what they were doing before it had even happened. None of it made sense to me, really. And I must say that when I got there, the very first impressions I had were, I would say, pretty disillusioning.
In the minds of Americans who went over there, they were briefed very thoroughly that they were going over there to save these people from some horrendous enemy, namely the communists, who turned out to be the people themselves. They were totally convinced that their value structure was dominant and the important one and the correct one, and that the rest of the world were savages, dinks and slopes.